Okay, hopefully you did watch all the Sorcerer's Stone. And as much as I would like to talk about a couple of things, we can't. For the simple reason, more than likely, a week from Thursday, we won't have class because I'm having my right knee scoped. Probably that'll be in the morning. If it's in the afternoon, then we will have class. I won't know until the day before, late afternoon, what time they want me there. So definitely, on the 6th, I'll be emailing you one way or the other, or posting on D2L one way or the other, whether or not we're having class. I'm doing it then because we then have Monday and Tuesday off, and that'll give me just a couple more days to recuperate before I have to stand again. Which, if we don't have class, then that means we're going to have one day for Goblet of Fire. And there's no way in God's green earth we can do Goblet of Fire in one day. We're just screwed. So, Chamber of Secrets. I don't know how this happened. Well, I know partially how it happened. And I'm standing here pausing because I really want to talk about two things from Sorcerer's Stone. I might just send you a link to my yesterday's class where I gave a brief overview of the really important stuff from it, even though I know you've already watched the one I sent. Okay, so Chamber of Secrets. What's different in Harry's world between, say, the beginning of book 1 and the beginning of, did I start that? Yeah. And the beginning of Chamber of Secrets? How is Harry different?
He's fully aware that he's a wizard at that point.
Okay, he's fully aware he's a wizard at that point. What else?
Doesn't have to deal with the Dursleys anymore.
Doesn't have to deal, well, he does when he's home, okay? But he does get to look forward to going off to school, which admittedly, it's not like going to MTSU. I mean, it's a little more, romantic and exciting than. What else? What doesn't he have in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone that he does have in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets? Or at least he thinks he has at the beginning of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Friends. But what's wrong with that thought at the opening? If he has friends, where are they? It's his birthday. He doesn't have any cards. He doesn't have any letters. Now, he's used to not getting cards and letters, right? Because the previous 11 years of his life, he's never gotten cards and letters. Okay? But now he has friends and he's expecting them, but they don't show up. Okay? So, what does he discover is the cause for his not having friends? Not having cards and letters. Dobby is what he discovered. Now, I've got to be really careful what I say because I don't want to give away. How many of you have read all of these novels? Most of you, but not all of you, so I'm not going to give anything away. So, Harry discovers Dobby up in his room the night that, Mr. Dursley's having his big dinner to try and sell a bunch of drills and such. Dobby shows up. I'm going to skip the first chapter. Dobby shows up, and page 13. Harry wants to ask, what are you, but thinks that would be rude. So he asks, who are you? Dobby tells him who he is. Why are you here? Okay. And Dobby says, there is a reason I've come to tell you. And Harry, points to the bed, sit down. In other words, you don't have to stand, take a seat. And Dobby bursts into very loud tears, and Harry, shh. I didn't mean to offend Dobby. Dobby has never been asked to sit down by a wizard like an equal. Okay? And we get that equal italicized. Harry finally gets Dobby to calm down. We're not going to go through every chapter, by the way, like this, but we got to set it out. So he finds out, or Harry says, you can't have met many decent wizards. That is, if wizards have never said something like this to you, then they must be bad wizards. Okay? Dobby shakes his head, and then he's got to bang his head against the window and stuff because he spoke, even though he didn't actually say anything, but he betrayed his owners. And he explains why. And Harry says, won't they notice if you shut your ears in the oven doors? That is, won't they notice if you abuse yourself? And Dobby, no. Harry, why don't you leave? Why don't you escape? A house elf must be set free, sir. And the family will never set Dobby free. Dobby will serve the family until he dies. Harry stares. He's just... And I thought I had it bad, staying here for another 4 weeks. Okay. Dobby says, I must be set free. A house elf is enslaved. Okay. And Harry's like, I've got 4 more weeks. I don't have it bad at all. This makes the Dursleys sound almost human. Can't anyone help you? Can't I? Is that similar to anything we've talked about in the Fellowship of the Ring? You're not in your head, yes. What?
It's like what Frodo kind of said.
When Frodo says to Gandalf, I really do wish to destroy the ring, or to have it destroyed. Can't anyone help you? Notice it's the reverse of what Frodo says, though. Anyone is somebody out there. And then, not Frodo, Harry makes it very clear. Can't I? What's he saying? Can't I help you? How can I help you? Dobby dissolves again into wails of gratitude. Harry, shh. Look at what Dobby now does. And we're going to see this, in several short sentences. Harry Potter asks if he can help Dobby. Okay? So what's Dobby doing when he says that? Dobby has heard of your greatness, sir, but of your goodness. So Dobby heard what Harry asked. Can't anyone help you? Can't I? And then Dobby does what? He rephrases it for us, seemingly. He interprets it. Right? Dobby has heard of your greatness, but of your goodness. And then what does Dobby do? He takes Harry's statement and he interprets a moral quality to it. He says, I've heard of your greatness. And Harry's like, I don't know what you've heard about my greatness. I mean, Hermione's top of the class. And what does Dobby mean by Harry's greatness? Well, it's because of what Harry has done. He's going to tell us at the bottom of the page. So, but of your goodness, why does Dobby interpret Harry as being good? Being kind to him, sympathetic. Keep in mind what the word sympathetic means. Treating him as an equal. Sim means co. Pathetic means suffering. To suffer along with. Okay? Why does Dobby interpret, can't I help you, as goodness? It's not just, it's more than sympathy. Right? What would that mean? To help him. Action. If you've got to help somebody else, what does that mean for you? Doesn't every time you help somebody else, doesn't that mean you have to, in some sense at least, deny something of your own? At the very least, your time, your energy. I mean, you're spending it on somebody else. You're not spending it on yourself. All right? Harry says the thing about greatness. But he stops quickly, thinking about Hermione. Painful, because he hasn't got any letters. Harry Potter is humble and modest. What has Dobby just done for us? He's interpreted Harry's words. He hears Harry say, I'm not that great. And what does Dobby do? You're humble. You're modest. Notice the three things that Dobby has just now attributed to Harry. They're all virtues. He's good. He's humble. He's modest. Okay? Harry Potter speaks not of his triumph over he who must not be named, And Harry, Voldemort? Okay? Dobby says, I heard that you escaped yet again. Harry nods. And what does Dobby do? He interprets even the nod. He interprets the affirmation of what Harry did at the end of the previous school year. Harry Potter is valiant and bold. So, good, humble, modest, valiant, bold. What house is Harry in? Which is made up of the word. What's a griffin? It is a mingling of an eagle and a lion. Okay? We'll talk about the door in a moment. Why eagle and lion? What is each of those respective beasts, so to speak? King of the birds, king of beasts. Where do lions live? Where do eagles live, metaphorically speaking? Lions down here, realm of the earth. Eagles in the sky. Heavens. Okay. Griffins in medieval literature, in medieval bestiaries, were often symbolic, representing Christ. Why? Eagle, God. Lion, man. Because heaven, earth. I'm not saying that Harry is Jesus. Don't misconstrue that. He is symbolic, though. And J.K. Rowling, because of her degrees in classics and medieval literature, she was well read in all that kind of stuff. So you're going to see all kinds of symbols throughout the novels. The door, it's not door. If you are all interested in film and stuff, there's a very, very famous film festival every year, the Cannes Film Festival. What is awarded to the top film? The Palme d'Or of gold. Why gold? Why not silver? Why not platinum? Platinum's is of more value than gold.
Gold is associated with the best.
Gold's associated with the best, purity. Okay? When Harry wakes up, in the first book, this isn't what I want to talk about, but I'm going to bring it up. When Harry wakes up at the end of the first book, what's the first thing he sees? Gold twinkling. Dumbledore's glasses. There's a reason for that. Okay? When in a later book, I shouldn't talk about that. Okay. So, why is he a Gryffindor? We're told Gryffindors are bold, daring, brave. They show a lot of nerve. Okay? Are those all virtues? You can be bold and stupid. You can be daring and stupid. You can be brave. Bravery is bravery. Whether it's used for stupid means or good means, it still means what? You got something inside you, man, that should be respected. Nerve? Yeah. You got a lot of nerve, kid, not in necessarily a good sense. Right? So, why is Dobby there? Harry Potter must stay where he is safe. He says, middle of page 16. He is too great, too good to lose. Oh, I shouldn't go there. I really want to go somewhere with that. It has nothing to do with the rest of the books, but kind of a modern social, critical, political statement. Not really political. Stay where he is safe. Okay? Why? Notice what he says. He is too great, too good to lose. Harry Potter must not put himself in peril. He is too important. How? How is How is Harry Potter, not Perry Potter, how is he too great, too good, too important to lose? To whom? Is he too great, too good, too important? To house elves. Okay? So they keep talking. Harry asks, is there a plot? And he finds out there is a plot. He doesn't know what it is. Talks about Dumbledore. And Dobby says about Dumbledore, page 17, same kind of thing we're going to hear later come out of a voice, take it back. Same kind of thing we heard earlier, book 1, come out of the mouth of McGonagall. There are powers Dumbledore doesn't. Powers no decent wizard. And there's that idea of decency again. Harry mentioned it. You can't have been around too many decent wizards if nobody ever offered you to take a seat. Dobby now uses it, and we're going to hear it interestingly / ironically, sorry, in book 4, out of the mouth of Mad-Eye Moody. He's going to say something about decent wizards, okay, which is going to be really important. So, Harry finds out Dobby's been stopping his letters. And, Harry gets the letter from Mephalda Hopkirk, who's going to come up also later on. Okay? Fred, Ron, and George come and rescue Harry, take him off to the burrow. How do they come and rescue him? A flying Ford Anglia car. You know, they hear this tapping on his window, and there's Fred and George and Ron looking at his upstairs window. Okay? Why is Harry upstairs? Why is he no longer in the cupboard under the stairs? Because he moved in the previous book. Okay? By the way, I don't remember if this was in those lectures that I mentioned. One of the times when I was teaching in London, 2007 maybe? I think it might have been then. When the last book came out, one of my colleagues brought me a page from the London Times, I think it was. A house was up for sale in Gloucestershire, near the Forest of Dean, okay, that was owned by a Hollywood producer. The guy was selling it. And the claim to fame for the house is it's one J.K. Rowling lived in as a girl for a few years growing up. Okay, 2 interesting aspects to this house. Well, 3, I guess. 1, it was near the Forest of Dean, where she used to play as a child. 2, it had a cupboard under the stairs. And 3, it had a trap door into a cellar. Okay, so you've got the cupboard under the stairs, you've got the trap door, you know, the doorway leading down into the chamber underneath for the first book, not Chamber of Secrets. So, Harry goes off to the burrow, meets the rest of the Weasleys. All right. We're going to skip a bunch. We find out about Mr. Weasley, you know, putting a charm on the car. We go to Flourish and Blots. Let me back up for a minute. In the discussion at the Weasleys, find out they're going to get new textbooks for Defense Against the Dark Arts. What books do they have to get? Gilderoy Lockhart's books, okay? Why is that significant? Why is that important? Within the context of what is said. Who seemingly, follows Gilderoy Lockhart's advice/teachings? Who has, exactly, Mrs. Weasley. She has his books, not the Defense Against the Dark Arts books, but some of his other books on, well, let's see what Lockhart says about, so-and-so, okay? As I said, names are important. Gilderoy, what's that mean? You ever heard the phrase to gild the lily? What color is a lily? Generally, usually, like an Easter lily, white. Okay, so why would you want to gild a white lily? To gild means to gold, gold plating. Makes it look more valuable, makes it look more valuable, makes it look greater than it is. Okay, Gilderoy. Anybody know what the Roy is? If you had any friends, I did in grade school, named Leroy Leroy. King is what Roy means. It comes from French, spelled that way. Okay. So Gilderoy is the Gilded King. And the very fact that the king is gilded means what? Not a real king. King here doesn't mean political authority. It's just like highest of its class. Okay? Or great person, so to speak. Lockhart. That's pretty clear. It's not Gilderoy Open Heart. What's the problem with Gilderoy Lockhart? What's his, okay, we talked about Harry Potter and virtues. What's Gilderoy Lockhart's main vice? Vain? Where does this vanity flow from? I'm trying to get close to the root of the problem. He is a classic. Anybody who know Greek mythology? I never remember how to spell that word. Classic narcissist. Narcissus, in the Greek myth, was somebody who did what? Fell in love with himself, with his image in a pond. And just stared at it and fell in and drowned. Okay? We're going to meet somebody in the novels who is named Narcissa. Okay? Narcissa Malfoy, Lucius Malfoy, Draco Malfoy. Lucius. What's it related to? What Latin word that we still kind of use every now and then at least? Lucid, it's related to it. Looks, light. Okay. What name is related to that? It's where the name Lucy, by the way. Lucifer. Who's Lucifer? Satan. Okay. Satan means a very different thing than Lucifer does. I used to have a neighbor who, every Halloween would dress up like Alice Cooper. Dead ringer. I mean, looked exactly like him. Hair, everything. He had long hair anyways. And kids would come to the door and he'd welcome them to the door and he had snakes. And he'd come to the door, answer the door with like an 8-foot python wrapped all around him, with the whole makeup, the whole 9 yards. Lucifer means what? See, the ifer part is important. It means bearer of, carrier of, light. Lucifer, we're told in the New Testament, is the son of the morning star. Who's the morning star? Jesus. Lucifer was the highest of the angelic beings, according to traditional Christian theology. That's why his fall was so great, So, Lucius Malfoy, Narcissa, in love with herself, Malfoy. What's Draco? Dragon. Serpent. Malfoy. What's Malfoy? Mal, like maladjusted, malodorous, means what? Bad. So, mal is bad. What's foy? It also comes from French. Foi. It's faith. Bad faith is what their names mean. Why is it bad faith? Where do they put their faith? Let's do more names. Because these all come up. Voldemort. Vol, from Latin volare, which means to fly or flee. Death, from Latin, out of, away from. Mort, or mort if you're American, as in le mort d'Arthur, death. To fly or flee from death. That's what his name means, okay? So, back to flourish and blots, which doesn't really mean anything. Flourish, like, extravagance, and blots, like when you blot ink, blot paper. So, ink blots, writing on paper is blotted paper and such. So, what happens at flourish and blots? Two things that are really important. What are they? Well, actually more than that. Several things. Harry meets Gilderoy Lockhart, okay? But only after what? Malfoy. Malfoy shows up, the elder. Well, first we hear Draco, say some snide comment. And Lucius Malfoy's there. And what does he say to Arthur Weasley? What does he do to egg Arthur Weasley on to just, want to beat the living daylights out of him? He sees Arthur with muggles. What muggles? Hermione's parents. How mugglish are Hermione's parents? What do Hermione's parents do for a living? They're dentists, man. You can't, well, I guess maybe accountants, Could be more mugglish, okay? I won't go there yet. So, one thing that Rowling does well is she gives us these little tidbits that get followed up later. But she's also got big things that she never resolves. So there's lots of huge flaws in her books. And I'm going to point them out, as many of them as I can. Okay? She's a great storyteller. She's not a great writer. Let me rephrase that. These aren't greatly written. They're greatly told. If you want to read something that she writes that are fantastically written, read her detective novels, written under the pen name of Robert Galbraith. They're genius level. I mean, there are no loose threads in those novels. And they're really, they're dark. A couple of them are really dark and sick and twisted. I kind of wonder a little bit. He makes a comment about he thought, you could stoop no lower. Okay? And he talks about, demeaning the name of wizard. And Arthur says, we have very different ideas about what means the name of wizard. And let's see here. Let's pick up. I'm going to skip that part. When Harry goes into Borgin and Burke's. Go into, now I can't. What does Harry witness before Flourish and Blotch in Borgin and Burke's? What does he see? Draco and Lucius. And what are they doing?
They're trying to sell stuff that they
Trying to sell, what's the word for when you have illegal material? Contraband, essentially. Okay? Trying to sell contraband. Dark arts stuff. Okay? Draco's, meanwhile, kind of window shopping. Ooh, there's the hand of destiny, all this kind of stuff. And he also, sees something, because how does Harry show up in Borgin and Burke's? Flue powder, okay? And what does he hide in? He hides in a cabinet. Okay? Won't say anything else about it. Cabinet's going to come up later. So Harry makes his way. Where, by the way, is Borgin and Burke's? It's in Nocturne Alley. How's that spelled? Is it that? Or is it that? It's this one. But it's nocturne, meaning what? Like a nocturnal animal. It's night. It's dark. Okay? Diagon Alley isn't dark. Diagon Alley is light and airy and stuff, especially if you go to, Orlando. I lived in Central Florida for 2 years. I can't think of a worse place to put, Hogwarts and Diagon Alley and such. Especially since the mouse rules everything. So they make their way to, Harry makes his way to Flourish and Blotch and page 62 and 63. So Lucius and Arthur get into it. Lucius says, busy time at the ministry, I hear, page 62 at the top. All those raids, I hope they're paying you overtime. He reaches into Ginny's cauldron and he pulls out, in the midst of Lockhart's books, he pulls out a very old, very battered copy of A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration. And it says, obviously not. Dear me, what's the use of being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it? Now, notice what that sentence means, or notice what it implies. If you pay me well enough, I'll be a disgrace. In other words, everything has a price, okay? That's what Arthur says. We have a very different idea of what disgrace is the name of wizard. Clearly. And then he looks at the Grangers. There's a thud of metal as Ginny's cauldron went flying. Mr. Weasley had thrown himself at Malfoy, knocking him backwards. Fred and George, get him, Dad! Hagrid comes wading in and separates them. Malfoy throws Ginny's book back into her cauldron. And Hagrid says, middle of 63. This is a very important statement because it's an idea that is going to resonate throughout the remaining 6 books. This one to the end. You should have ignored him, Arthur. Rotten to the core. The whole family, everyone knows that. No Malfoy's worth listening to her. A bad blood. That's what it is. Bad blood. Okay? What does that mean? What's bad blood? Just think about it as we read along. So, Mrs. Weasley is just, a fine example to set for your children, brawling, what Gilderoy Lockhart, Fred's like, he was pleased, man, it drew more attention. Okay? Whomping Willow. What's the significance of that chapter, the Whomping Willow? Is it the actual willow tree? You know, that Harry and, not Fred, not George, Ron, fly into? Or is it the fact that Harry, I almost said Fred again, Harry and Ron have to fly to school? Right? They miss the Hogwarts Express for some unknown reason. They can't get through the barrier and such. So they fly to school. And they get beat up by the Whomping Willow. They make their way to the school. Okay. They look through the windows, skipping a bunch, 77, because I'm trying to get us actually through this today. Not going to happen. And what does Harry notice? Harry? Yeah. Wait. There's an empty seat. Snape's gone. What's Harry thinking? Ron, maybe he's ill. Harry, maybe he's left because he missed out on the Defense Against the Dark Arts job again. What's the rumor going around school? Snape wants that job, right? Or he might have been sacked, says Ron. I mean, everyone hates him. Or maybe, says Snape's voice right behind him, he's waiting to hear why you two didn't arrive. Okay? So what does Snape want to have happen to Harry and Ron? If it were Snape's decision, what would happen to Harry and Ron? They'd be expelled out of school. What would Snape have had happen in... Hold on. My drug-addled brain has got books mixed up. Nope, that comes later. Sorry, I was going to say something that I thought was in the first book, and I'm confusing it with this one. So, McGonagall and Dumbledore show up. McGonagall gets to dispense judgment, so to speak. Why? They're in her house. Notice McGonagall's head of Gryffindor. Snape's head of which house? Slytherin. Who are the heads of the other houses? Flitwick and who? Hufflepuff is Cedric's house. And that is not Madame Pomfrey. Sprout. That's Sprout. And Flitwick is Ravenclaw. Thank you. Okay. What does Harry do or say to lessen the severity of their punishment? Page 80. They're talking. She says, explain. We couldn't get to school. I mean, we couldn't get on the train. Then why did you send us a letter by owl? I believe you have an owl. Harry's like, I didn't think that. Notice how Rowling constructs the sentence. That, said Professor McGonagall, is obvious. The reason said Professor McGonagall is not only because she needs somebody to say that, but it separates the that is obvious. It gives us a pause to emphasize you didn't think, right? So, Harry and Ron think they're being expelled, and she says, why do you say that? And then page 82, they talk about the sorting ceremony, and she says, and speaking of Gryffindor, because she tells Ron, your sister's in Gryffindor, and speaking of Gryffindor, and Harry cuts in. Notice, Harry interrupts a professor. Not just any professor, McGonagall. Professor, when we took the car, term hadn't started. So Gryffindor shouldn't really have points taken from it, should it? You can't penalize our house, because what's going to happen when they go up to the common room? If the house has already, lost a bunch of points, people aren't going to be happy. Right? McGonagall gave him a piercing look, but he was sure she had almost smiled. Why? What does this show Harry doing? Thinking. Very quickly, on the spot, in a difficult situation. Something he should have done back at platform 9 3/4, right? Or King's Cross, since he couldn't get to platform 9 3/4. So she says, I will not take any points from Gryffindor. That is, your house is not going to be penalized because of you, but you're both getting detention. Okay? Cool. They go upstairs and everybody else is celebrating. And one of the things they're celebrating is what? It's not just beginning of the school year, but they've already heard how Harry and Ron arrived at school. Flying, So we get Gilderoy Lockhart, that chapter. Ron gets a howler from Mrs. Weasley. The howler is important. Not this particular howler, but a howler. She introduces this. Why? Because it's going to become important later on. So, what's Harry's detention? And what's Ron's detention? Harry has to sign address letters for Gilderoy Lockhart. Okay. What does Ron have to do? Polish silver. I don't know if you've ever polished silver, but it can be a pain. Repetitive motion, syndrome kind of thing. Why is Harry's detention so much worse than Ron's? Because he has to be in a room alone with Lockhart. And at page 91, page 90. Harry, says Lockhart. Gave you a taste for publicity, didn't I? Gave you the bug. When did he get the taste for publicity, according to Lockhart? At Flourish and Blots. You got onto the front page of the paper with me. You couldn't wait to do it again. No. Harry. And by the way, this is one of the things in the films I think was done. I hate the films. Okay, the first one's probably one of the best, and it's simply because it's the highlights, the major events in the first film, but it lacks plot structure. But casting Kenneth Branagh as Gilderoy Lockhart was sheer genius because he's one of the greatest actors we have, and he just exudes that role because he lets his inner actor narcissism just kind of go. Okay, I understand. Natural to want a bit more once you've had that first taste. What's that kind of imply? What kind of language is that? An addiction, like a vampire with blood, You get that taste, you gotta have more. But see here, young man, you can't start flying cars to try and get yourself noticed. Just calm down, right? Plenty of time. I know what you're thinking. It's all right for him, meaning me, Lockhart. He's an internationally famous wizard already, but when I was 12, I was just as much of a nobody as you are now. In fact, I would say I was even more of a nobody. After all, people have heard about you and that, little unpleasantness with he who must not be named. But, not quite as good as winning Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award 5 times in a row. Because he's talked about Harry's scar. Because Harry can't go anywhere without being recognized, right? That's why he wears his hair down in front of his forehead. Right? So Harry goes off to class in Sprouts. Just by chance. Sheer happenstance. What are they doing for herbology? It's just a plot device. They're repotting mandrakes. Why mandrakes? Why not something else? Because they're going to be needed later on in the rest of the novel. That's why I said it's just a plot device. This is one of the elements of what I mean by, in one sense, she's not a great writer because it is so overt that, mandrakes. Well, later on we find out what can you do with mandrakes. You create an elixir that unfreezes people, essentially, okay? So, I'm going to skip that. We don't need to talk about that. They go to defense against the dark arts. By the way, how do you abbreviate that title? I don't know that J.K. Rowling did this on purpose, but I think so. Dada. Dada was an early 20th century movement in painting, okay, that was against representational art. So Picasso, for example, was an early Dadaist, etc. It's part of the Cubist movement, so that you don't paint a person that looks like a person. You paint it in circles or squares or just lines and such. All right. Well, defense against the dark arts is kind of Dadaistic. A lot of it doesn't make sense. Especially we will see when we get to, a couple of teachers like Lockhart, like the teacher we'll see in book 5, okay? Though we do have some teachers who are very good at it, like the one we'll meet in the next book, okay? So, they meet Lockhart. He comes down and he opens up his book, or he has one of his books, and he does this. Because rather than having just words and something else, what does his books have on the cover? Him. Not something about the material being covered. The kinds of books today that you go, that if you were to go to a bookstore and you buy a book, and would have somebody's picture on the cover, what kind of book is that telling you that is? It's one of two things. It's a biography or it's an autobiography. It's about the person on the cover. What's this telling us? All of these books are what? They're about Lockhart. Okay? Not about what he's done. They're about Lockhart. All right? And so he holds up and says, me, Gilderoy Lockhart. Order of Merlin, notice, 3rd class. Okay? Dumbledore's Order of Merlin, 1st class. Honorary member of the Dark Forest Defense League. Why is he an honorary member? Why not just member of the Dark Forest Defense League? That would be like being honorary member, SEAL Team 6. Military. Why do you become an honorary member? Because you can't cut it. You can't do what's required to merit being a member of SEAL teams or any of the other SEAL teams or Delta Rangers or, etc. Delta Force Rangers, etc. And notice, he finishes, one of the things you're told in the writing class is to often finish with the most important thing, because that's the thing people leave remembering. And 5-time winner of Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award. This is one of his academic achievements, qualities. Why I'm here teaching. Okay? Oh, but I don't talk about that. And there's a phrase in rhetoric, and I can't remember what it is, that describes what it is he's just done. He mentions it, but then says, but I'm not going to mention it. It's like when you write something and you say, not to mention, and then you mention. Okay? It makes it stick in the mind. Okay? So, what kind of lesson are they going to have this 1st class period? Practical. Right? This isn't going to be theory. This isn't going to be like, when we get to book 5 with Dolores Jane Umbridge, and all the teaching is going to be theoretical. This is going to be nuts and bolts, practicality. We're going to see how well you can do this. And so what does he do? Yeah. Okay, he gives a quiz, first of all, about himself. And then what? He releases the Cornish pixies to see how well they can put them back. Okay? Who puts them back? Most of them, at least, seemingly. Hermione, Harry and Ron a little bit. What about Neville? He's up there swinging from the chandelier. what about Lockhart? He can't do it. And Harry and Ron kind of pointed out to Hermione, and she's like, come on, guys. Into the book, into that chapter. Ron, page 103. Can you believe him? Notice, for some reason, the word believe is in italics. And I've never pointed this, I don't think, never pointed this out before. I think there's a reason for it. And it's because the idea of belief or believing in someone is going to grow in importance till we get to book 7. Book 7, in one sense, is all about what do you believe? Okay. He just wants to get us some hands-on experience, says Hermione. Harry, hands-on. Hermione, he didn't have a clue. Rubbish, you've read his books. Look at all those amazing things he's done. Ron, he says he's done. Right? Hermione, look at his books. They say what? I've done X, Y, Z. Ron says his books do what? They say he's done X, Y, Z. What's Rowling raising there? Has he really done them? What else? I mean, true. He lies. Okay, keep going. What does Hermione think about books? You can trust them. If it's written and published in a book, God's truth. What's Ron suggesting? And maybe it's because Ron doesn't read. I don't mean Ron can't read. I mean, Ron doesn't crack textbooks, because what's he do, generally? He cheats from Hermione, right? Okay. Rowling is raising this idea, this question. How do you know what's true? How do you know? Is it true because it's printed somewhere? I mean, we're going to be introduced to, we've already been introduced to, the Daily Prophet. What's another magazine / daily / newspaper we're going to be introduced to? The Quibbler. They're both journalistic publications. What would these be equivalent to in our world? New York Times, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, LA Times, Miami Herald, any one of those. Okay? What's this? National Enquirer, The Star if you're in England, The Sun if you're in England. Tabloid, right? Kind of thing on the cover, there's a grainy picture from a telescope. Elvis discovered on Mars. Right? But this is what? This is truth. Right? The government says, blah, 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 blah. She's raising it. Okay, so I have to make sure I'm not confusing books. My brain is so fried. So there's another book that's going to be read within this book, right? What book is that? What book has this printed in the back? Anybody remember? I think it's that, actually. Tom Riddle's diary. Okay. Who? Well, I'm jumping way too far in. Mudbloods and Murmurs. What time is it? 10:33. Mudbloods and Murmurs. Okay, so Harry goes off for Quidditch practice. And who gets the pitch? Who got the pitch seemingly unfairly? Pitch meaning the Quidditch practice field. Slytherins, right? How'd they get it? Snape signed a form for them, even though Wood had already booked the practice field. Okay? Who's on the Quidditch team for Slytherin this year? Why/how? He bought himself, his father bought his way onto it. Who says that? Page 112. Hermione. At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in, Hermione says. They got in on pure talent. Okay, who does she really mean? Now, who's she really talking about? Harry. Why was it significant Harry got put on the Quidditch team in his first year? Because he's first year. First years normally cannot play. Who kind of massaged the rules a little bit? McGonagall. Why? Because she's tired of Snape winning. So she bends the rules slightly. Okay? And we find out Harry's the youngest player in, I think it is a century. And we find out he's a seeker. Okay? His father was a seeker. Right? It's interesting that Harry is a seeker, by the way. He is seeking a lot of things. They got in on pure talent. What did the Sorting Hat say about Harry in the first book? Harry puts it on, and we get this little conversation. Not a bad mind, not a ringing endorsement, by the way. That's not like, whoa, Harry, man, genius level. No, it's like, 60 watts and 120 watt bulb package, What else? Thirst to prove himself. Okay. Talent. Oh my, yes. Okay. Interesting. So, look at Malfoy's response. No one asked your opinion, you filthy little mudblood. And all hell breaks loose. Ron tries to blast him, ends up blasting himself, because his wand is damaged, and he's got it pointed backwards. If you're going to fire a gun, make sure you've got the muzzle pointed away from you, kind of a thing. Fred and George jump, et cetera, et cetera. Why is everybody so angry? Well, Harry, Ron, and Hermione go to Hagrid's hut because what has happened to Ron? He keeps coughing up slugs, okay? Page 115. Harry says, they're talking about defense against the dark arts and says, Lockhart was the only man for the job. Nobody else would take it. And then Harry says, Malfoy called Hermione something. It must have been really bad because everyone went wild. Ron, it was bad. Malfoy called her mudblood. Ron, Hagrid, he didn't. He did. Hermione says, but I don't know what it means. I could tell it was really rude, of course. Why does Hermione not know what mudblood means? She was raised a muggle, okay? Totally correct answer. Why else doesn't she? She hasn't read about it. That is, the term mudblood is not in the kinds of books Hermione would read. Not even the kinds of magical books. So what is mudblood? Ron, it's about the most insulting thing he could think of. Mudblood's a really foul name for someone who is muggle-born. Non-magic parents. There are some wizards, like Malfoy's family, who think they're better than everyone else because they're what people call pure blood. What did Hagrid call the Malfoys? Bad blood. Right? I mean, the rest of us know. It doesn't make any difference at all. Look at Neville. He's pure blood. He can hardly stand a cauldron the right way up. Hagrid. And they haven't invented a spell Hermione can't do. It's a disgusting thing to call someone, Ron says. Dirty blood. See? Common blood. It's ridiculous. Thing is, Rowling doesn't invent the term mud blood. comes from the early 20th century. KKK. It was used to describe blacks who, according to this mentality, rose from the mud. What's the equivalent? It's nigger. That's why it is so offensive. Okay? I mean, it's designed to raise the hackles. Okay? Harry's totally oblivious. He's never heard it. Hermione's totally oblivious. Notice Ron is extreme, and Hagrid is extremely offended. Can't say anything to Hagrid. Ron's pure blood. He takes offense at it. Right? And he says, if we hadn't married muggles, we'd have died out. Okay? So, you get this idea, purity versus what? Impurity? Or purity versus mixed? Okay? What else is she, Rowling, doing with this? What's all this tied into? What problem in the world? You know, Tolkien. Creative fantasy is founded upon the hard recognition that things are so in the world as it appears under the sun, upon a recognition effect, but not a slavery to it. Racism, prejudice, bigotry, okay? These are all being addressed. And they're all being addressed in this idea of blood. Okay, why blood? It's talking about what someone is in their essence. Okay? Now, remember, Hagrid said about the Malfoys, bad blood. That implies what? If you have bad blood, what can you not do? You can't change. You can't change. If you've got bad blood, you're going to be bad. Period. Right? So, book opened to where? I don't know why it did. Murmurs. We go to the next chapter. Harry makes his way. Harry, Ron, and Hermione make their way back up to the Great Hall and such. And Harry hears a voice, page 120. Come to me, let me rip, let me tear you, let me kill you. Not a pleasant voice, right? You know. And he's like, what? Lockhart, I know, 6 solid months. Harry's still doing his detention. Sorry, they've gone already back up. Harry's doing his detention. And he hears this voice. And Lockhart says, okay, that's enough. I think we should, call it a night. Death Day party. We're going to skip a bunch. Harry gets in trouble with Filch. And what does he find in Filch's office? Kind of important. Notice Filch's name, by the way. Argus Filch. What's it mean to filch something? It's usually used to be used. It's not used that frequently now. To pilfer and filch, it's to steal. It means you got light fingers. You go around and you just kind of take stuff. Well, what does Filch do? He takes things from students, right? Okay. The name Argus, I think the dog with 1,000 eyes, he sees everything. Part of that's because of the wretched cat, Mrs. Norris, who's going to get what she has coming to her a little bit later. So, Harry's down in Filch's office. He's in trouble, and he sees Filch has a quick spell course, correspondence course on how to learn magic. telling us what about Filch? He's a squib. He's non-magical. He can't do magic. And he runs into Nearly Headless Nick because Nearly Headless Nick causes a diversion so Harry gets out of trouble. Nearly Headless Nick, page 133, we find out when he died. Okay? He died October 31st, 1492. What is he getting ready to celebrate? Which death day? His 500th. So that's telling us when this novel was set, right? It's set in 1992. So, Chamber is 1992. So that means Philosopher's Stone is 1991. How old is Harry at the beginning of when he turns his birthday? He turns 11. So, Harry Potter was born in 1980. Right? That means Prisoner of Azkaban is 93. Goblet is 94. Order of the Phoenix is 90. Order of the Phoenix is 95. Half-Blood Prince is 96. And Deathly Hallows is 97. All right? This is good. The timeline gets important because of something we are told in this book, okay, about an event that occurred. So, what's Nick ask of Harry? What do you want Harry to do? Come to his death day party. It's a weird request, you know. Harry and Peeves talk about Moaning Myrtle. Well, Peeves brings it up because Harry and Nick were talking about it. And Harry leaves the death day party, page 137, with Ron and Hermione, and he hears the voice again. Rip, tear, kill. Okay. Page 138. They're kind of following the voice, and where do they make their way to? That third floor hallway. Okay. And they see the sign on the wall, 138. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air beware. Ron, what's that thing hanging underneath? And as they go closer, there's water on the floor, and they see Mrs. Norris. Ron, let's get out of here. Harry, shouldn't we try and help? What did he say to Dobby? Can't anyone help? Can't I? Okay. What kind of relation? I know I'm being weird to use this language. What kind of relationship does Harry have with Mrs. Norris? She nearly got him caught in the previous book, right? When he was sneaking around at night, trying to, learn about Nicholas Flamel. Okay? Not a good one. He'd soon as kick the cat as pet. Shouldn't we try and help? Ron, trust me, we don't want to be found here. Ron, in many senses, Ron is kind of a voice of natural common sense. Like, bad news, man. Let's leave. But they're too late. They are caught. There's writing on the wall. Who shows up? Filch shows up. McGonagall shows up. Snape shows up. Lockhart shows up. Dumbledore shows up. Okay. What does Snape want to have happen? Kick him out. Dumbledore's a little extreme. Innocent until proven guilty, page 144. Who says innocent until proven guilty? I don't mean who in the book. Where does that idea come from? That's the American justice system. It's actually also in Magna Carta, okay, the Great Charter, 1215, a lot of which, our rights and laws and such are based upon. Interestingly, seemingly in the wizarding world, there is no such presumption of innocence. How do we know? What happened at the beginning of this novel? Dobby dropped the pudding, right? Who got blamed? Harry. Was there any kind of inquest, any kind of inquiry as to whether Harry dropped it or not? Nope. It was just assumed. All right? And then we're going to see later on people who are accused of crimes and get sent away to prison before any kind of trial. So, Harry says it wasn't me. They go off to the, I'm skipping a bunch again, History of Magic class with Professor Benz. And Hermione and others ask questions about the Chamber of Secrets. I mean, if anybody should know about whether or not there was a Chamber of Secrets at Hogwarts, it should be him, right? Why? One, that's his field of study, history of magic. Why else? He's a ghost. He's been there for a long time. Okay? And he says there is no such thing. What's his coup de grace in terms of his final proof? What's his argument rest on? If Dumbledore couldn't find it, it can't be real. How does Hermione kind of argue counter to him? He says it's what? It's a myth. It's a legend. Go back to Aragorn. Myths and legends what? Usually have their origin in some piece of fact. Okay? It's a myth, page 152. It does not exist. There is not a shred of evidence it's ever built so much as a secret broom cupboard. Right? 154, 55. Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they're talking. Ron explains why he's afraid of spiders, right? Because when they went, they saw the spiders. They go back to the room, they find the spiders, crawling up the wall, and Ron backs away. 155. Hermione giggles. Ron says, I don't mind them dead. Okay, he says, I don't mind them dead. And I think one of the reasons for that is Rowling already knows something she's going to do in book 4 with spiders. Hermione giggles. It's not funny, says Ron. If you must know, when I was 3, Fred turned my teddy bear into a great big filthy spider because I broke his toy broomstick. You wouldn't like them either if you'd been holding your bear and suddenly it had too many legs. So, when Ron was 3, how old were Fred and George? They're 2 years older. So they would have been 5. What kind of magic is that? Turning a teddy bear into a living spider. It's transfiguration. What kind of transfiguration? I mean quality. Very advanced. Right? What kind of transfiguration have they attempted? Yeah. Beetle into a button, pincushion, I think it is, into a hedgehog. Okay? At what age? They're all 11 when they start transfiguration. They all have wands. Fred and George? Where'd they get the wand to do this? Where did George? Where did Fred get a wand to do this? Did he filch Arthur's? Because you can't do it without. That's an example of a flaw. That's a logical flaw in the writing. Okay. Or not. Go ahead.
Does have a counterpoint to that?
Yeah.
Harry, doesn't he technically fly to the roof of the
Yep,
school?
he does.
If he's angry enough, could he technically?
He does. And we're told that that's unfocused. Because what's he doing? He's merely getting away from getting a snot beat out of him. But it's not, and we're going to be told later, should I go there or not? Yeah, I can, kind of. We're going to be told later, I'm not going to name any names. We're going to be told later, another character who finds out, who this person finds out is a wizard. This person has done magic before having a wand, but it's always been unfocused. It's kind of, if you're an X-Men, if you've seen the X-Men, it's like when Cyclops takes the glasses off and the rays go everywhere. Has the glasses and it's focused, kind of a thing, right? But this is what? This is advanced and it's very focused. We're going to see later on, book 4, we're going to see them going around through the Quidditch field. And there's going to be a little kid, like a 3-year-old, and he's got daddy's wand, and there's a slug, and the slug gets big and shrinks back down. He's using an engorgement charm. That's not supposed to be possible within at least what she tells us within this world. Okay? So it's an example of, while it's great storytelling part, because it is pretty funny, right? Ron's getting there, he's hugging his teddy bear, and then the arm, I don't know if you've ever had a big spider on you. One day in high school, I think I was a sophomore or junior, it was after school, I was walking around without a shirt on, went in my biology teacher's classroom, and somebody was in there and had tarantulas, like in a jar kind of thing. And they were putting it on people's arms, and I said, put it on my back. You never want to have a tarantula crawl. I mean, and it was a pretty big tarantula, it was about the size of my paw. And you feel those 8 legs each move individually, and they're kind of hairy. Yeah. Kind of understand Rowling here. So, they keep talking, and Percy catches them, because they're talking about Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, etc., etc. Hermione comes up, we need to come up with the Polyjuice. Okay. Chapter, the next one, Rogue Bludger. So Harry gets knocked off. Lockhart fixes him. How? He gets his arm broken when he lands. Harry does. How does Lockhart fix him? Yeah, remove all the bones. And his arm just becomes, limp flab. Okay? So he gets taken up to the hospital wing. Infirmary. Page 176. Harry wakes up and there's Dobby. And Dobby says, I told you not to come back to school, and says some other stuff, and Harry says, it was you. It was you that kept us from getting through to platform 9 3/4. Dobby says, yes. It was you trying to save me, nearly killing me. Dobby says, yes. Page 177. Harry asks Dobby, why do you wear that thing? Because he's got a pillowcase on that just looks like it's covered in snot. It's just disgusting. 'Tis a mark of the house elf's enslavement, sir. Dobby can only be freed if his masters present him with clothes. The family is careful not to pass Dobby even a sock. Plants the idea. Okay. Dobby mentions the bludger. Harry says, I don't suppose you're going to tell me why you wanted me sent home in pieces. If Harry Potter only knew, if he knew what he means to us. Who's the us? Dobby's going to tell us. To the lowly, the enslaved, we dregs of the magical world. Okay? Lowly, enslaved, dregs. Dobby remembers how it was when he who must not be named was at the height of his powers. We house elves were treated like vermin. He goes, of course, I still am, but Mostly, sir, life has improved for my kind since you triumphed over he who must not be named. Harry Potter survived, the Dark Lord's power was broken, and it was a new dawn, sir. Harry Potter shone like a beacon of hope for those of us who thought the dark days would never end. Harry was like a ray of sunlight. Okay? Notice the language that's used. Harry is a beacon. He gives new hope to those who live in darkness. Read the beginning of St. John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. And he came and dwelt among us, and his light shattered the darkness, but the darkness comprehended it not. And what? Wants to do away with the light. There's more of that biblical kind of imagery going on here. Okay? And Dobby mentions the Chamber of Secrets. And Dobby doesn't just mention it like, ooh, it's mythical. He says, it's open here. So there is one. And Dobby's, shoot. Okay? So Dobby says, you've got to be safe. You've got to go back home. Harry says, not me. One of my best friends was Muggle-born. Page 179. Oh, new virtue. So noble. Valiant, we've already heard. But he must save himself. Isn't that the essence of narcissism? Save yourself, screw everybody else. Numero uno. Harry Potter must not. And then there's noise. And we see somebody brought in. Okay? Colin Creevey. Which I don't know about you. I'll just, I'll betray some of my bad, nature here. Just off him now. Just get rid of Colin Creevey. He's just a pain throughout the rest of the novels. Okay? But Colin Creevey's brought in. There's Madame Pomfrey, there's McGonagall, and there's Dumbledore. Look what we hear, page 180. What does this mean, Albus? McGonagall asks. It means that the Chamber of Secrets is indeed open again. So now he's heard it from Dumbledore's mouth. There is a Chamber of Secrets. It has been opened in the past, and it is open again now. But Albus, surely, who? She asks. Dumbledore, the question is not who, it's how. Okay? Notice that. Who and how are both what? They're questions. They're three-letter words that you could take one and make the other out of, right? They're anagrams of each other. This is Rowling telegraphing. We're going to see the same thing used later on. We're going to see an anagram later on. Okay? Dueling Club, we're going to skip, except for the very end where we find out Harry's a Parselmouth. Because what does he say to the snake that is going after justice? He doesn't realize this, by the way. He says, go away, leave him alone. What does everybody else hear? We're told later. Sibilant sounds because snakes supposedly hiss. The only snake that really hisses is a cobra. Just before it, spits in your eyes with its poison. What else do we learn in that chapter? Oh, I don't know. Let's say about Lockhart. He's even more of a moron than we thought before. Notice, Snape tells Malfoy what? How to duel. What does Lockhart say? Just give your wand a nice little flick of the wrist. Totally useless, right? And then Harry thinks what? After he finds out he's a Parselmouth. Maybe I am the heir of Slytherin. Maybe I don't belong to Gryffindor. And he thinks of what the Sorting Hat said. And what did the Sorting Hat offer him? He had a choice, right? You could go in Slytherin or you can go in Gryffindor. Notice, Harry's not given the choice of Ravenclaw. Not smart enough. Why isn't he given the choice? I think it's very interesting. Why isn't he given the choice of Hufflepuff? What characterizes Hufflepuffs? Friendship. They're loyal to their friends. Harry's got that, right? They're hard workers. They're diligent. Harry, he just kind of coasts on his homework and stuff. Okay? But what did the Sorting Hat say Slytherin could do for Harry? It could make him great. He's got ambition. It could make him great. And he chooses not to. Okay, so Polyjuice Potion. What do they learn as a result of using the Polyjuice Potion? What do they learn that they had hoped not to learn? Let me put it that way. Malfoy is not the heir of Slytherin. They'd hoped Malfoy was the heir of Slytherin. That's why they used it. They thought they would spy on Malfoy. Okay? And by the way, what does the Polyjuice Potion look like when they drop in, Crabbe and Goyle's stuff? What color does it turn into? Snot, we're told. Yeah, I won't say anything else. Okay, since we've only got like less than a minute. We'll come back to Thursday. We'll finish this, and I'm going to try and get into, I'm going to get into Goblet of Fire. I don't know how much, but I'm going to get into the Goblet of Fire. Okay? All right.